Have you ever felt lost as if you have no purpose? Or you felt stuck in a career with not knowing what to do next? If that sounds familiar, then this video is for you. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today we are diving into a fascinating concept called Ikigai, a Japanese philosophy that can guide us to a life of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So back in 2019, I was lucky enough to travel to East Asia with a friend of mine. And during that time there, I came across this book, Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life by Hector Garcia and Francis Morales. Now once I started reading this book, I couldn't put it down and completed it in one sitting. I was captured by this idea that once you understand it, it seems so simple, but to me it made the world of difference, acting as my North Star ever since, guiding me in my career with the utmost clarity. Before I take you on this journey and try to explain to you what I've learned, I'd like to give you a brief introduction as to who I am, what I do, and how I've used this concept in my life and career. So let's go. So about a year and a half ago, I had the opportunity to speak at a conference for a couple of high schools actually. And I was asked to just speak about anything with regards to careers, entrepreneurship, along that lines. And I thought this was very appropriate for the students at this point in time. So I'm going to take you through briefly some of the slides that I shared with him, and how I tackled my Ikigai. So basically I'm just going to take you through who I am, what I do. Then we'll go through the concept of Ikigai and how I apply it to my career. So who am I and what do I do? So if you're new to this channel, I'm Daz. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator based in Cape Town, South Africa. So instead of me really going through a whole in-depth introduction as to who I am, I'm just briefly going to give you guys 2 slides of some of the work that I've done, just to give you a sense and a visual idea of what I do. So on the first slide you can see here, this is most of what I do, which is graphic design work. A lot of my projects consist of branding and web design, but you can see in here as well there are some publishing elements as well. So I do logo design, website, marketing material for social media, apparel, all those type of stuff. Lately I've been doing quite a bit of deck design for proposals for companies. That's been actually quite a lot of fun. Funny enough, I never expected to enjoy that quite a bit. And then something I don't really speak about much online, but you'll see it in this presentation, is the family business that I work in. So we have a educational publication, and we create textbooks for TVET colleges, but that's something that I'll elaborate a bit later on. Quite a bit that I've done in the past as well is like lesson creation and in the form of video for Delondra, which is something that you can see on their YouTube channel. But yeah, so here's just a bunch of graphic design projects that I've tackled over the years. And then obviously there's my illustration that I do, which is kind of bulk of what I share online. Funny enough, I've done quite a range of some cool projects over the years, but lately I've been getting myself more to like graphic design work, because I found that it was a bit easier and it served more what I was trying to achieve. Illustration has always been a passion of mine. It's actually what got me into this field, and it's still something that I take on quite a bit of illustration projects. But yeah, I think moving forward, it's more going to be about how combining the two will work a bit together with regards to my graphic design and branding projects, and how I can incorporate my illustration in that as well. So I've mainly worked with regards to my illustration projects, a lot of it has been within the gaming and advertising industry, whether it be concept art, storyboarding, and character design. But yeah, that has mainly been the bulk of what I've been doing there. So, Ikigai. What is Ikigai and what does it mean? So, Ikigai is a Japanese philosophy. It means reason for being. And what I'm going to take you through now is in this book, if you've ever seen this book, there's a diagram at the back of this book that basically explains what I'm going to share with you now. And this tackles the concept of Ikigai. So there are 4 things to decide or think about. I put the term decide here because I was obviously speaking to students at this point in time. But yeah, Ikigai is broken up into 4 sections. What do you love? What are you good at? What you can be paid for? And what the world needs. So if you think of it in terms of these 4 circles, you can see what you love and what you're good at overlaps into what your passion is. What you're good at and what you can get paid for is generally considered to be your profession. What the world needs and what you can be paid for is your vocation. And then what you love and what the world needs could be your mission. And all 4 of those overlap in each other. Basically is what your reason for being is, or your purpose, and that is your Ikigai. So what I wanted to try and do in this video is take you guys through my Ikigai and how I approached this exercise to give you guys an idea of how to do it yourself. And yeah, also once I'm done taking you through this, I'll give you an idea of how I applied it as well. So what do you love? So there's a lot of things that I love. So on here you'll see that I basically just put down all the things that I love. So yeah, initially you just jot down everything that comes to mind. You could always simplify it at a later stage, but I always felt it was best to put as much down as possible initially. So for me it's art, design, family, friends, animals, sports, outdoors, hiking, stories, gaming. Especially in gaming, I like RPGs, role-playing games, because of the story and the narrative that's around it. Love the whole immersion around that. That should basically include film as well. I didn't put film on here, but movies is something that I love as well. And being around people that are chasing their passions is something that I enjoy. I feel like there's a certain type of energy you get when you are around others that are so focused on their purpose and are driven towards their goals. And I think they always have this saying where you are like the 5 people that you spend most of your time with. I kind of feel the same way. I feel like there's truth to that and also not. But yeah, I do feel like when you're around people that are driven, you kind of do get a little bit of what they're giving off. And then the last thing there I wrote there is I love learning and I love love. I always thought of myself as a romantic, whether it be in my head. But yeah, I always thought that was something that I was that I loved. And then obviously I love myself. Or I love this version of myself now. I'm currently 33, and it took me a long time to get to this point of where I feel this way about myself. But yeah, I think I can comfortably say that should be on this list. So that's an idea of the type of things that I love. So what am I good at? So yeah, so this is a little bit of introspection in terms of what you're good at. I think you have to have a good idea of who you are in order to do this. But when you're doing this, I mean, you could do this multiple stages of your life. Your Ikigai could possibly change over time. But once you get to a sense of where you want to be in your life, you'll see that it'll be consistent. Like I've done this exercise years ago and it's still sticking to the same point today. So I'm quite confident in terms of where I see my Ikigai going. So what am I good at? So I believe I'm good at art, design. I'm fairly good at drawing. I'm a good critical thinker. I'm good at strategy. I'm good with people, and I believe I'm a good communicator. I think I have communication is something that I'm good at, in the terms of I'm quite good at articulating my thoughts and what I want to say or how I see things in my head. Obviously speaking to a camera is a lot different to that, so YouTube is something that I'm still learning, but I think in reality I'm quite a good communicator, and I believe the people around me would say the same thing. So what can I be paid for? So based on my skills, I studied graphic design about 10, 11, 12 years ago, and during that course they basically taught you the basic principles of design. And over the last 10 years of my career, I worked within corporate and agency environments, and yeah, the skills that I've picked up over time, you could see in the first 2 slides that I shared with you in terms of the work that I produce. I also believe that it's a lot more than that, but yeah, that's just visually what you see is produced from my skills. So what can I be paid for? So I can be paid for creating art, design, illustration, strategy, or teaching and education. I've taught in the past before. I've taught art at some high schools, and yeah, you'll see as this go along that teaching is actually quite a big part of what I want to do within my Ikigai. Maybe the delivery will be slightly different, but yeah, I think in terms of what I want to achieve, teaching and education will be a big part of that. So what does the world need? The world needs a lot of things, obviously. We're all aware of what's going on in the world right now. But I'm just trying to stick around what the world needs that is similar and relating to the topic that I work within, or the realm that I work within. So what does the world need? The world needs education, job creation, sustainable business, healthcare, safety, just leadership. So I always like to put emphasis on just leadership, because there's a lot of leaders out there in this world, but whether they are honest or good leaders is a question to be had. But yeah, that's why I say just leaders. Affordable healthcare, affordable lifestyles. There's a lot of things there that can be discussed in depth. More transparent government is something that I also wrote in there. This can be transparent, or this can be described in a lot of ways, but I thought it was applicable to me because of the educational system. There's a lot of things in our educational system here in South Africa that I don't think upskills the students correctly. There's so much stuff that we are not taught in schools that makes life a lot harder as we get older, because we learn certain things a bit later on in life. And then another thing that we need is unbiased news. Obviously unbiased news, I'm not still going to elaborate about that. We need less distraction. Sometimes distraction can be a good thing, sometimes not. And then what I'm trying to do is create more valuable content. So we need a lot more valuable content online. Yeah, so those are the 4 areas. So obviously if you go into this and you tackle it a bit more, that's what we will go. So let's go into the next layer. And I think as you're doing this, you could try and do this with me as I'm going along, but you could also do this on your own. I'm sure you can just download an Ikigai diagram, or you can just write it on a piece of paper, but generally when I see these type of things online, I always try to go ahead with the speaker. So what you love and what you're good at, so those 2 things together form your passion. So ever since I was a kid, I mean, this is the same story for a lot of people, but I mean, if it's similar for so many people, it's just something that we all resonate with together. And for me, that passion is creating art. I think at this point, the definition of art has changed a lot as I got older. I mean, obviously when you're younger, you see it in the form of drawings, paintings, illustration, all of that stuff. As I got older, art changed for me. I think at this point in my life, art could be art could be defined as a lot of things, but like just to give you an idea of what I see art as, it's not just beauty, but it's also beauty accompanied with function, and function could also be defined in many ways, but in a simple definition, I would see art as something that is beautiful and something that adds value, and it could be adding value in a lot of ways. So education could be art, content could be art, a lot of things could be art, text could be art. I think that's how I see art. It could be many things. So I love creating art and I love creating design. What am I good at and what can I be paid for? So those two things are my profession. So I'm a creative director, I'm a graphic designer and illustrator as well. So what I'll explain a bit later after this, once I run through this, you'll get a better idea of how my business and work environment works. But basically I have two hats. I have my freelance business that I run, and I have my clients that I deal with. I do full scope, obviously doing discovery calls with them, strategy with them throughout the process, and do the design work, get printers involved, all of that. Then I have the publishing side. So like I briefly mentioned before, I run a educational publication with family, with my father and my sister, and we create content for TV colleges in South Africa. So that's currently what I do. So what the world needs and what can I be paid for? That's my vocation. So I think when I started this, I didn't necessarily understand what vocation is, but this is how I understand it. So I think initially I got a little bit confused in terms of what exactly vocation is. But the simple way I understand it is your profession is something that you make a living with. That's your form of survival. That is what you get paid to do and how you live doing that. Your vocation is more aligned to what your passion is, in a sense. It's your calling, it's your purpose, it's something you do for free. That's basically what your vocation is in a nutshell. So what I wrote here down, based on what the world needs and what I can be paid for, and my vocation would be giving back to others by sharing and teaching what I've learned. So that's generally what you'll find from a lot of YouTubers have this similar vocation, or a lot of content creators have a similar vocation, in the sense that all the skills that they learned, they feel the need to share it to others and give it as a form of education in that sense. That's basically what I believe my vocation to be. So what do I love and what does the world need? So that's my mission. That overlapping is my mission. So in my instance, it's to create a design agency / academy that creates work and students of a professional standard. So I think before I can explain that, I kind of need to go to the next slide, and then I'll give you guys an idea of what I mean there. So in essence, I'm already running my agency, which is my freelance business. And even though I am ultimately a one-man show, I do have partnerships with like other freelancers and other businesses that do certain services for me. Let me just take you through this mission a bit clearer, and then we can take it from there. So what is my mission and what is my vision? So like I mentioned before, this is something that I kind of wrote down during COVID period and tried to figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life. So for a long period of time, I always wanted to be a freelancer. I always wanted to work for myself. I always wanted to do things my way, and how I learned it, and use the skills that I've learned over my career, and basically help people as best as I can. And I think working for other companies along the way over the last 10 years, you do feel that that there are, I always had this innate feeling that there are other ways of going about it. Also, I've always believed, because of my beliefs, I'm Muslim, and there are certain limitations or things in business, or principle, let me not use the word limitations, but there are certain principles that I embed in my business in the way that I do things. And obviously working for somebody else, those things can kind of be infringed. And that's one of the reasons I always also wanted to run my own business. So yes, I'm a freelance graphic designer, but I'm not a big fan of the word freelance, but I like to look at it as my freelance business, because I obviously run it as a business. So that's me as Raz Arnold Design Illustration. Then what we have here is the Londra, like I explained. So there's two things that you'll see. There's the Londra Academy, and then the third thing is actually the Londra Bits. So I'll explain to you guys what those are, because those are all these are 3 companies, and the last one, the Londra Bits, is actually a product we created, which might not be what I end up doing over time, but at this point of creating the slides 2 years ago, this was the biggest project that I was working on at that point in time with Academy. So the Londra is an educational publication. So my father was an electrician over years and became a lecturer, and then he created his own content over time. And then when I finished my courses and stuff, I got involved in helping him creating the visuals, the layouts for the books. And over time, he's managed to create his business. I eventually came in and started helping with operations in terms of how the business is run and how we do things. I've been working with him for about 6 years in total now. There was a little bit of broken service, but in that period to where we are now, we've created about 18 to 20 books, and those books are sold nationally to the TV industry. So that's where the education side comes in. Now, even though I'm a graphic designer, don't necessarily fall within that bracket. I'm just trying to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how I'm using those skills that I've acquired with the Londra to achieve my Ikigai. So my Ikigai was kind of the birth project of using what I wanted to do with my life. I kind of created the birth project that was the Londra Academy during COVID times. So creating our small academy that would use the content that that my dad's created over the years, and turning that into visual lessons and content, creating our own academy over that period of time. Unfortunately, during COVID, things got worse and that project kind of died out, but that's still something that I want to pursue over time. So that's the project that I'll always be working on. Whether it be called the Londra Academy or something else is irrelevant at this point, but the idea is, if you think of something like a Skillshare along those lines. Now, if you go on the Londra Academy's YouTube page, you'll find the Londra Bits, which was what my team created at that period of time. And basically what the Londra Bits was extracts of our books and of our content in short form video. Now, that was just a little bit of what we wanted to do. That was basically the birth project of those lessons. But obviously the overall idea was to create long form content of students in classes or taking these classes like a Skillshare method. So yeah, that's basically a brief idea of how all 4, I don't know if you can see how all 4 actually works together, but that's basically it. So me moving forward, and the whole purpose of YouTube and streaming is where this takes my idea a bit further. So I always had this idea that I always wanted to offer lessons. So YouTube is the beginning of this entire process. So you can see I always had this idea of doing tutorials and having these type of discussions on YouTube. And obviously when I attempted doing this the first time, it was a bit harder for me to speak to a camera, to do video content. But that's where streaming came in. One of my friends told me about Twitch. I started on Twitch, and that journey was quite interesting. So Twitch was never really the goal. The goal of Twitch was just to teach me how to speak to a camera and to get comfortable in front of a camera. And the idea of live streaming would be to have live lessons, to interact with students and an audience that is interested in learning the things that I'm learning and the services that I'm offering. So that will be the delivery method with streaming. YouTube would have free versions of design courses that I would like to create over time. So whether that be illustration courses or graphic design courses, or other type of courses along the line, as I upskill myself, I want to share that content to the world. And then thirdly, I will eventually also think of doing a version of these courses in person. So that will obviously be down the line. Maybe in a couple of years, I'll start thinking about doing more workshops, even though I've done workshops in the past, and discuss about various topics related to design. So you can see here on the right hand side, I basically just try to list 3 sections in terms of what I could possibly be teaching, and in the realm of the knowledge that I have. So yeah, obviously there would be the principles of the design, speaking about emphasis, balance, alignment, contrast, proportion, white space, movement, rhythm, scale, color, repetition, and so much more. There's a lot more principles of design we can discuss. And then business of design has always been a topic that I found interesting, especially in my country, in South Africa. South Africa has a big issue with regards to unemployment, and entrepreneurship and creative business opportunities is always something that I thought would be a major impact to the economy, especially to students qualifying now, struggling to find work. They could create their own opportunities if they knew how. And business of design is similar. This type of idea, I've been watching Chris Do and The Future for many years, ever since I was a student. And I always felt that if that business model could be approached or applied within the context of South Africa and the people within South Africa, that would be a great positive for my communities. And obviously that will still apply to the greater of YouTube, the greater international, and everybody else. But there's so much things you could discuss within the business of design, and there's so much channels out there already that do this, but doing it in the context of what I'm aware of and what my knowledge is, I think would add a lot of value. So you could speak about negotiating, pricing, finding your value, your niche, specializing. Also, you always have this whole argument of should you generalize, should you specialize. That is a topic on its own, and I think that idea there is, even though most people believe specializing results in higher costs, all of that, there's a lot of advantages to being a generalist as well, which is something I currently am. And that's a decision I need to make down the line, is whether I want to specialize. I could speak about how to scale, and at this point in time, I don't necessarily have the knowledge in terms of how to scale, but I have the idea of how I would see myself scaling and how I've done it in Delandra and how I've done it in other businesses. But I think I'll tackle topics like that as I achieve that. So I think that would be very interesting within my journeys, to speak about my experience and journey within these topics and how I achieved it over time. Finding clients, networking, mindset, and formalizing your design process. These are all various topics that you can already find online. But yeah, I think all of this, as you can see, is my journey and how I applied all these topics into my structure. And then finally, my favorite would be illustration and drawing. You will already find on my channel there are a couple of illustration and drawing tutorials and lessons, which is something that I'm going to continue throughout the year. Yeah, there's many things that you could do there in terms of anatomy, concept art, technique, finding your art style, etc. And I think the where I find the most fun out of creating all this content is myself going through the content and creating something. I'm learning as well, because even though I'm 33, I've been doing this for 10 years. To people starting out their career, that might seem like a lot of time, but people doing this for 30, 40 years and for a long time, they would see this as the infant stages, and I still have a lot to learn. And I think that's life. You're always going to be learning. I think even people doing this for 40 years is still learning things today. Technology is changing. AI just came into it. ChatGPT is a good new integration tool that we could be using in our copywriting, in our video creation, all of that. So you'll never stop learning, and you'll always be developing as you go forward. So in a nutshell, if you can see what I'm trying to do here and what my Ikigai is, having my design agency, working with my clients, creating the best work I could possibly do, and then whether this be with Delandra and Delandra Academy or on my own, create educational content in the form of video first and then transfer it into a physical product. I think that's what I would love to do. And I think what I'm going to do is try my best to achieve that over the years and see where it takes me. And that's pretty much where I am at this point. So yeah, I'm super excited. YouTube is just the start of all of this, and I hope to have you guys with me on this journey, and we'll see where it takes us. So yeah, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and give the video a thumbs up. It really goes a long way. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.